let's not forget this Bengals franchise was in the AFC Championship game just a year ago. They went to the Super Bowl before that. And the only thing that's a little disheartening is that I guess I do think, and this is what's bothered me a little bit, I do think great offensive play or great quarterbacks can mask what really actually makes a great team go. And for sure, yes, I'm not downplaying what Joe Burrow means to this team, and I'm not downplaying what Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd and, you know, whether, and I don't want to say Hayden Hurst, but he was a good player for a short bit of time. And I think Tanner Hudson's been pretty damn good too, if you want to call it that. But the one thing that the Bengals have not been able to do is really insert and basically, impose their will on teams, right? Yeah. And I'm not saying they're a finesse team in a way. I'm not saying that they don't have anybody that can get down in the dirt and be able to get a yard here or there when you need it the most. But a great offensive line, or even a good offensive line, can find a way to convert 4th and 1s, 4th and 2s. You watch the Eagles play, and I know the Eagles are the exception to the rule, maybe. But more times than not, if you watch a great team, they're going to find a way to be able to just run the ball for a yard, and it's largely because they can block. And this team's inability to block has been the reason they've not been successful. I mean, and I know that they've tried. Mm-hmm. But it still begs the question, the problem needs to get fixed one way or the other. And that's a disheartening thing, because I don't think there's an easy fix. And the easy fix, and it's not easy, is to hit on some draft picks finally. Yeah. You got to do that. You got to do that. I'm not saying maybe it's a first rounder, maybe it's not. It depends on the way things fall in the draft, and I'm not naive on how all that works. If you got a chance to get Brock Bowers in the first round because he fell and you didn't think he was going to fall that far, you got to take him, and you just take him. I get that. But you can't take a second-round pick again in the next few years and get Jackson Carman. That can't happen. It can't happen. Because if that does happen, you find yourself in the position that we're in now. And you can say whatever you want about, they could have done this, done that. At the end of the day, Duke Tobin gets credit for certain things, yes. But they've also, and you can, remember when everybody wanted to make fun of what the Bills GM said? And the Bills GM was basically kind of being like, well, it'd be nice. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to have Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase too. I can pick them. I mean, top 5 pick of the draft. That's fine. And I'm not saying the Bengals haven't made other great picks. But they're going to have to find a way to get an elite offensive lineman through this draft. And they're going to have to be immediate impact players. And those exist throughout the league. If you look in the league, there are rookies that are pretty damn good offensive linemen. It's not an unforeseen thing. So if you told me there was one thing that needs to happen this offseason for the Bengals, and I don't care if you want to call it luck or skill, I could care less. They need to get lucky, or they need to get something right when it comes to picking offensive linemen in this draft.
Yeah, I mean, the Jackson Carman draft will probably live in infamy amongst Bengals fans that are like super into draft and whatnot, because there was 3 guys that ended up being all-pro, Pro Bowl sort of caliber offensive lineman on that board that went right after Jackson Carman. Unfortunately, I think what I just said earlier about the Allen Athletic lineman that we have, Jackson Carman was the complete opposite of that. He was supposed to be the super athletic guy, super strong, very raw talent. They couldn't develop him, couldn't figure it out. At some point, you also got to look at coaching, I think, as well. Last year and the year before that, they were able to run the ball. I mean, Joe Mixon was at least top 10 in rushing every year. It's tough because I think now at this point we're looking at maybe it being an age factor. They're just declining, and injuries are piling up a little bit on those guys. They played really long years back-to-back. That's just tough. I think the Bengals, they have to hit on a draft pick. And if they're going to do it, it has to be in the first 2 rounds. You look at the data, and it suggests that you're going to hit on offensive linemen most of the time in the 1st and 2nd round.
Right.
After that, it's the 5th round, and that's because they're taking flyers at that point. Mm-hmm. You take flyers on your day 3 guys and just hope that it pans out. So if what you're suggesting, what you want them to do comes to fruition, I mean, they have to do it in the first round, and that's just going to be a tough ask with all the other holes that we have on the team.
And I'm not trying to rip off a Band-Aid here and cause sore wounds right after the season's over. But, I mean, look, you took a punter.
Yeah.
You took a punter. Pick. And I'm not trying to pat Casey on the back, and you heard guys like Casey and Vach was on this as well. But DeJuan Jones, he goes to the Browns.
4th round.
He goes to the Browns, and, I mean, you're out here drafting punters. The same punter that, luckily, if the ball will go 45 yards.
Still can't.
So Jolly brings up a good point in the chat. Is like 25 teams in the NFL are worried about their offensive line, right. And that's because it's the second hardest position to draft, right? It's the second most valuable. It's the second most valuable.
Can I push back just a second? I want to hear your take on this. Yeah. That's fine. 25 other teams. How many teams are worried about their quarterback? Who's got the number one priority? When you look at all the teams in the NFL and they put first problem number one.
Right.
How many of them are actually saying their offensive line number one?
Well, that's the thing, is because the hardest position to draft and the most valuable position to draft is quarterback. That's number one on everyone's list. That's why people reach on quarterbacks all the time. Is because once you get an elite guy, once you get a really good guy, then you can start worrying about other problems. The second problem is offensive line, and it's the hardest. Like, it's the second hardest behind quarterback. So that's why these things come in line. It's the second most important position on the field. Listen, we're not breaking new ground here when we talk about how the Bengals need to draft well to consistently be a good team. Everyone knows that in the NFL, right? It goes, get a quarterback, draft well, have a good coach. Those 3 things. If you do those 3 things, you're going to be successful till the end of time. You're going to be good for forever as long as you keep doing those 3 things. A better philosophical question is, do the Bengals need to change their identity as a franchise? You look at the AFC North, and what do the other 3 teams have that the Bengals don't? Or what's their identity compared to the Bengals? You look at the Ravens, they're a hard-nosed, smash-mouth, run-first team. And, yeah, they've got an elite guy at quarterback. There's no doubt about it. Lamar Jackson's going to win the MVP, bar none. Then you look at the Cleveland Browns, hard-nosed, defense first, great offensive line, move the chains, run the ball. You look at the Steelers, good defense, move the ball, to run the ball on the ground. All these things, they're hard-nosed teams, and that's what the Bengals are not. And the Bengals haven't been that way for years, ever since Marvin Lewis went away. And to Zach Taylor's defense is they've won 2 AFC North titles in the past 2 years. Obviously, they aren't going to win it this year. Obviously, the Ravens won it this year. So do the Bengals start molding themselves, start trying to be more like those teams, those other 3 teams in the division, and kind of fit in the parameters that these 3 teams are? Or do they stay the course of kind of being the finesse team in the division? While all these teams are zigging, we're going to zag, and it's been pretty successful. That's the deeper philosophical question. And I'm not disagreeing that the Bengals need to hit on some offensive linemen, but I do not want the Bengals to go the way of the Cleveland Browns and to go the way of the Pittsburgh Steelers, because I haven't seen them have the success that the Cincinnati Bengals have over the past few years.
Now, I'll push back a little bit, because yes, they are a finesse team, but they have been very capable of running it down teams' throats the last 2 years. Not this year in particular, but you look at the Chiefs game last year, you're handing it off to P. Ryan. He's just crushing people for 3-4 yards a carry, and they were smash-mouthing then.
Right.
The 2021 Super Bowl run, they handed off 30 times to Joe Mixon in the Steelers game, handed off 30 times to the Raiders.
Their most dominant wins are when they have been smacked, other than the 2 Ravens wins back in 2021 where Joe Burrow threw for 900 yards in those two games. But you're right. When the Bengals looked their best, a la the Bills game last year, they're turning around and handing it off and kind of being a smash-mouth team. But I would ask, is that because it's a completely different game plan than what they've shown all season long and it's catching teams off guard? I'm asking the philosophical question is, do the Bengals try to mold themselves to be like the other teams in the AFC North? And I don't think they should, just because they're going to finish last this year. I don't think they should. I think they should stay to be the finesse team in the division because, once again, they won the division last year. They won the division the year before. No other team in the AFC North has had the success that the Cincinnati Bengals have had over the past few years.
Yeah, I mean,
to illustrate your point, I think there's one thing in sports that seems to be true. Every specific sport has one thing that if you do it really, really well, no matter how everything else is, for the most part, you're going to have a good team. In the NFL and in football in general, I should say, is if your line play, if you can physically outman the person in front of you, you could put whatever quarterback you want back there, put whatever running back you want to put back there, put whatever wide receivers you want to put out there beyond the hash marks, way out there wide. If you can just straight up out-physical the person in front of you, you're probably going to win. And that's why I felt like all along Michigan was going to win, and they were going to win a national championship. That's why when you watch the Steelers play, you think to yourself, I know Kenny Pickett sucks. We all know Kenny Pickett sucks. He's not good. I know it. You know it. But the only reason that the Steelers, you think, have a puncher's chance when you go into the game is because you know damn well that Watt, and they're going to probably be able to run Najee Harris or whoever the hell else they have in the backfield, 3, 4, 5 yards. And that's part of the deal. In basketball, if you watch a team like, and I go to college basketball specifically, the NBA is much, much harder to have this comparison to because it's a different game in and of itself anymore. But you watch Houston play college basketball the last few years, and you think to yourself, I don't care what team they're playing, it's going to be a pretty decent close game. They're probably going to be competitive. In baseball, if you have a guy that can go out there and shove it, I don't give a damn how bad the offense is. Look at the Twins. Look at the Brewers. We wanted to make fun of the Brewers all year long in this office. Like, look how bad this team is. Look at the lineup they're running out there every single day. It doesn't matter. Steelers, yeah. It doesn't matter when the other team can just shove it right down your throat and you don't score. So I will say, though, the AFC North is a gauntlet right now. But I would also, and it has been, but I would also, the Browns have been very, very bad. Okay? They've been very, very bad. The reason this North feels a little bit different than in the years past is because the Browns have finally figured it out a little bit. And the Browns have, I don't want to say this one run in the sun, but I'm not going to, I really do think it is like that, though. Like, the Browns, they've reached the peak of what they are right now. If they have an elite quarterback and Deshaun Watson comes back and plays great, that changes things altogether. But when these guys start to go get paid, that team's going to look a lot differently, unless they hit it on draft picks, as we talked about before. But to answer your question, I would like to see the Bengals still stay who they've been. Right. Because ultimately they've had success. The one thing they've not done, quite honestly, is the one thing we talked about before the show, and you can say we're beating a dead horse. I don't give a damn what you want to call it. It is the facts. When you watch the Bengals, they have an offensive line that is not good. When I say not good, I mean like average at best. It's hard to win the crowning achievement in your sport, the pinnacle thing, the thing that everyone's chasing after, when one of the most important things is whether you can out-physical someone in front of you, and you have a below average at that. It's trying to win a World Series with nobody in your starting rotation. I mean, yeah, you could field an all-star lineup, but if you got Luke Weaver running out there, because I'm going to continue the strays. I'm going to see how many strays I can get in on one show about Cincinnati Reds, former Cincinnati Reds. If you want to run Luke Weaver out there 5 days a week, go ahead. You better have Ronald Acuna Jr. batting 1 through 9. So my point is simple. I don't think that you can blame, if you want to place blame on the Bengals, and Zach Taylor is the head coach, he's going to get the brunt of every blame there is to be made. All I'm saying is, when are we going to start saying Zach Taylor is a bit of a problem, and maybe someone in the front office is a little bit of the problem? It goes a little bit both ways is what I'm getting at.
Oh, what a great point by our host, Tom Brenneman. And boy, oh boy, can that Elliott be a little rascal. Well, if you like that video, please subscribe, like, comment, so more people can see it. Yeah, there's a video over here. One right here, too. See ya.